The last thing my eyes beheld was the faint shifting outline of my son, a tiny mewling bundle against a landscape of refuse and shadow. Then the world collapsed into an abyss of unconsciousness. I fell into that darkness not with relief, but with a final fervent wish etched upon my soul, that I had been granted the mercy of death alongside him. 2 decades of emptiness later, he returned, but in a form and manner so far beyond the frail imaginings of my broken heart, that it could only be divine orchestration. Hello. My dearest friends, my unseen companions, how does this day find you? I pray it finds you in health and held in comfort. May the Lord's boundless grace shelter you, today and for all your tomorrows. I am Agnes Parker. 74 years have traced their lines upon my face and their lessons upon my spirit. And today I feel compelled to unburden my soul of a story I have carried like a sacred, sorrowful weight for more than half a century. I first drew breath in Meridian, Mississippi, in a time so removed from the present, it feels like a story read in a dusty book, its language and customs belonging to another people entirely. And here I have remained in this modest town that has been the silent witness to every chapter of my existence. You see, in these twilight years, I have discovered a universe of contentment within the boundaries of my backyard garden. Each morning, as the first gentle light spills over the horizon, I step outside with my old dented watering can, a simple gift from my son a decade ago, and I commune with the earth. I nurture tomatoes that blush a deep, sincere red, lettuces that form crisp, green rosettes, sturdy kale, bell peppers that hang like polished lanterns, and a host of herbs whose scents alone can calm a troubled mind. There is a theology in this simple act, a profound peace in partnering with creation to transform a dormant seed into sustenance, into a quiet hymn of ongoing life. This sanctuary began when my son presented me with this house in 2005. Before that blessing, I had never possessed a single square foot of earth to call my own. So when I first surveyed that empty, promising rectangle of yard, I made a covenant with myself. Agnes, you will make life rise from this ground. And now, my friends, behold the joyful testament to that promise. Each day offers a humble harvest. Just yesterday, I gathered tomatoes so radiant and sweet they seemed like captured sunshine, destined for a pot of simmering sauce. My domain is modest, but it is sovereign. A small scarred wooden table serves as my cleaning station. A faded white plastic chair awaits me when the sun grows imperious. The long planter bed, my own handiwork built from leftover bricks, stands as a rampart of life. Within it, my plants stand in orderly rows, like a loyal green regiment. Now, before I journey into the past, I have a tender request for you, my dear listeners. If this narrative stirs something within you, please honor it by pressing that like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support is the fuel that allows me to share these fragments of a life lived. It genuinely warms my old heart to sense your presence on the other side. And to each of you pausing your day to be here, would you indulge me? Tell me in the comments what corner of the world you watch from, and what hour has brought you to me. Is it the thoughtful morning with your coffee, the drowsy quiet after lunch, or the deep contemplative evening? I read every single word you leave, and I am perpetually moved by the connection, by the gift of your time spent with an old woman and her memories. Now, children, the tale I must weave for you is woven with threads of pain. It concerns a season of my life I tried desperately to bury, yet it is also the relentless fire that tempered me into who I am. It stands as evidence that life will sometimes test us with burdens designed to break our backs, only to reveal, years later, that they were strengthening our spines for a weight of glory we could not then conceive. You will walk alongside a 12-year-old girl. That lonely child was I, who was forced to navigate horrors that should forever be foreign to innocence. You will meet individuals whose darkness seemed absolute, and you will witness the patient, often startling, mechanics of cosmic reckoning. This is a story soaked in tears. But it is also a story that proves hope is a seed that can germinate in the stonest, most barren soil. Steel yourselves, my dears, for I am guiding you back to 1963, to a small wooden shack here in Meridian, and into a world that operated by a colder, crueler logic. I invite you now into the year 1963. When I was a girl of 12, dwelling in a poverty so thorough you might scarcely conceive of it. Meridian then was a place of stark contrast, progress brushing against deep tradition. A web of interconnected lives where privacy was a luxury for the wealthy. My home was a shack of graying, splintered wood and tin roof turned rust orange. Perched on what is now the east side, but was then the frayed edge of town, where the woods whispered close by. It contained 2 rooms, a single all-purpose space for sleeping, cooking and existing, and a cramped back room housing my father Gerald's few tools. Gerald offered his labor to construction when fate provided it, but he devoted a far greater portion of his soul to the amber poison served at Mr. Wilson's bar. He was a tall man worn thin by resentment, a silhouette of angular bones perpetually shadowed by stubble. His eyes were the color of old whiskey, and his large, calloused hands, which could have built things, were more often instruments of intimidation. He was a man in his early 40s who carried himself like a ruin, perpetually bent beneath the invisible weight of his own bitterness. My brother Bobby was 5 years my senior, a solid, sturdy youth who had absorbed our father's coarseness and his profound aversion to effort. He was a creature of idleness, haunting the town with other lost boys, his dark eyes holding a sly, calculating gleam that ever unsettled me. My mother was lost to me in the haze of early childhood, taken by fever after a stillbirth. My memories of her are mere sensory echoes, the faint scent of lavender, a sensation of security, a whisper of song. So our trinity of dysfunction was complete. Gerald, Bobby, and me. Adrift in that cramped space. My days were a cycle of weariness. I rose in the pre-dawn chill to haul water from a distant well, the bucket straining my small frame. I prepared a weak brew of coffee and scraped together remnants for a meager breakfast. While Gerald pursued elusive work and Bobby pursued trouble, I remained the silent keeper of our squalor, sweeping the hard-packed dirt floor, scrubbing dishes in a chipped basin, battling an entropy that seemed a living force. School was not a part of my world. My father decreed that girls needed only the wisdom of the kitchen and the broom. Our little plot was bounded by a haphazard fence of discarded boards. In the backyard, I attempted a garden, but the earth was stingy and yielded little. Still, I persisted, for every green shoot was a minor victory. Other children were largely kept from me. I was Gerald's girl, and my family's reputation was a wall around me. My sole comforts were Zelda from up the lane and Victor, a kind boy from Alabama. Our games were simple: hopscotch in the dust, hide and seek among the trees precious. Islands of normalcy. The true descent began around my 10th year. Bobby's gaze began to change, to linger where it shouldn't, accompanied by comments that curdled my stomach. My father, encased in a bottle, noticed nothing. Our debts grew like weeds at every storefront in town. Many nights, supper was a solemn affair of watery broth or a single pale potato. The violations escalated. Bobby would spy on me through cracks in the wall, his denials slick and mocking. Then came the catalyst. A sweltering December night in 1963, the eve of my 12th birthday. My father was absent, lost to drink. Bobby returned early, his eyes glazed, his breath a sour cloud. "You're becoming a young lady," he slurred, a strange smile on his face. "Time for you to learn." I cannot detail the violation that followed, my dears. Some experiences live in a realm beyond words, their geography one of pure terror and shattered trust. Dawn broke on a different girl, one whose interior world had been fractured. As he left, Bobby branded a threat into my psyche. "Tell anyone, and I'll kill you. Dad will help. No one believes a lying little girl." It was not a solitary event. Whenever Gerald's absence provided opportunity, the nightmare repeated. "Our little secret," Bobby would taunt, his voice a venomous whisper. "You know you want it, but I did not. God in heaven is my witness, I did not." I scrubbed my skin until it burned, prayed until my voice was raw, and felt a loneliness so complete it was like being sealed in a tomb. By March of 1964, my body began its silent, terrifying rebellion. My slender frame began to curve. At first, I clung to the excuse of hunger, but by May the truth was undeniable, even to a child. A cold, heavy despair, the first true companion of my motherhood, took root. I was a child incubating a child, living in terror of discovery. Bobby's assaults continued, a monstrous indifference to the life he had helped create. I became a ghost in my own skin, swaddling my changing form in my father's oversized shirts, moving in a perpetual hunch, avoiding the perceptive eyes of neighborhood women. Mrs. Olson, the local midwife, lived just a few houses away. I would pass her gate, my heart a frantic bird, imagining a confession that never reached my lips. How could the words be formed? The question spiraled, a vortex of panic. I prayed for the nightmare to end, but my body was a relentless clock, ticking toward a moment of reckoning. That moment arrived in the desperate, lonely hours of an October morning in 1964. I was utterly alone. My father and brother were at a distant wedding. For hours I labored in silent, primal agony on my thin palate, a knotted rag between my teeth, to silence my screams. When my son entered the world, a love of terrifying, magnificent power flooded me, followed instantly by a tsunami of pure panic. He was miniature perfection, crying with a fierce, indignant vitality. Cradling him, I knew. A love so vast it was terrifying. Then reality crashed down. What now? How could a child mother a child? I cleaned him with trembling hands, swaddled him in a diaper torn from an old sheet. He quieted, his dark newborn eyes seeming to search my face, to ask his first question. And then the sound that pierced my soul. The rough voices and heavy tread of my father and brother returning home, far too early. My son's renewed cry seemed to ring our death knell. They filled the doorway, blurred by drink. "What's that infernal noise?" Gerald growled. His bleary gaze found the bundle in my arms, and the drunkenness seemed to evaporate, replaced by a cold, sharp shock. "What in God's name is that?" "It's a baby," I whispered, my body vibrating with a fear so profound it felt like dissolving. Bobby stepped forward, his eyes not confused, but shrewd, assessing. A flicker of something akin to triumph in their depths. "Whose child is this?" Gerald roared, snatching the baby from me with a wrenching violence. He held the infant carelessly, as if examining a problematic object. Who did this? My eyes flew to Bobby. He gave the slightest, most menacing shake of his head. His unspoken threat echoed in the room. I was trapped, a mouse between two snakes. I don't know, I choked out, the lie bitter. A boy from town just once. A bastard. Gerald spat the word, jostling the baby. Another cursed mouth when we're drowning in debt. He paced like a caged animal, ranting about creditors and shame. I begged, promising superhuman labor, utter submission. If only they would let my son stay. Bobby's laugh was a dry, cruel thing. Babies are a plague, Agnes, a costly plague. My father stopped. He and Bobby shared a long, silent look of communion. Of malice that decided our fates. Get dressed. Now, Gerald commanded. You're coming with us. Weak, bleeding, broken, I obeyed. When I lunged weakly for my child, Bobby shoved me back with contempt. You walk in front, he ordered. And don't even think of making a sound. Our procession into the darkness was a funeral march. Gerald led, my son dangling from his grip. I stumbled behind, each step a fresh agony. Bobby brought up the rear, a silent sentinel of doom. We walked to the vacant lot behind our land, a forgotten place, a cemetery for discarded things, reeking of rot and desolation. When I understood, my soul screamed. No, Dad, please, in the name of mercy. They were statues of indifference. In the heart of that wasteland, Gerald thrust the child toward me. Leave it. I refused, my cries tearing at the night. Bobby seized my arms, his fingers biting into my flesh like iron claws. You'll do it. The easy way, or we'll do it for you. As I hesitated, blows descended on my back and sides. Put it down, now. Defeated, emptied of everything but a core of shattering pain, I took my son one last time. I imprinted his face on my soul, breathed in his scent, felt the frantic beat of his tiny heart against mine. Every instinct screamed to run, to fight, to die for him. But I was a child alone in a world of giants. I knelt and placed him gently on the filthy ground, among the shattered glass and rusted metal. Forgive me, I breathed, a prayer lost to the wind. His cries followed me, a sound that would haunt my every quiet moment. Then the world went black. I fell into oblivion, wishing with my last shred of consciousness that the darkness would claim us both. I awoke at dawn in my own bed. For one merciful second, it had all been a dream. Then the physical memory, the stains, the echoing silence, rushed back. I ran to the vacant lot, clawed through the debris with bare, bleeding hands, sobbed. Until I was hollow. He was gone. Simply gone. For 20 years, my dears, I carried that loss like a second skeleton, a structure of grief and guilt within me. Every night, the same torturous questions played on a loop. Did he perish from exposure? Was he found by a stray animal? Or did a kind soul rescue him? Did he grow up in a warm house, wondering about the mother who discarded him? The uncertainty was its own unique hell. Those 2 decades were a gray, grinding expanse. I remained in that decaying shack with Gerald and Bobby. Gerald shrank into a bitter, coughing old man, while Bobby bloated into a lazy, parasitic specter of his former self, his gaze still occasionally stripping me of my dignity. I became the engine of the household, rising before the sun to wash strangers' laundry, sell sad little pies at the market, scrub the floors of those who looked down on me. Every hard-earned coin vanished into the bottomless pit of their drink and debt. They weaponized my past, their refrain a twisted mantra. Remember that bastard? We saved you. We saved this family. Their narrative was so persistent, it sometimes seeped into my own mind, a poison of false gratitude. Then, on the 15th of March, 1984, the stagnant pond of my existence was shattered. Returning from a day of backbreaking laundry, I saw a peculiar scene. A small crowd, and in its center, a magnificent black car that seemed from another planet. Beside it stood a man who commanded the very air around him. He was tall, maybe 40, dressed in a suit that spoke of another world. As I hurried past, his gaze found and held mine, a look of such profound knowing intensity it stole my breath. And there, on his forehead, clear in the afternoon light, was a small pale scar. At home, Gerald and Bobby were agitated. A man was asking questions, Bobby said, his nervousness poorly concealed. About the family, about a long time ago. My heart hammered against my ribs. What did you tell him? We lied, Gerald admitted, and I saw genuine fear in his watery eyes. But he paid Wilson a fortune for information. Said he'd be back. That night, sleep was impossible. A wild, terrifying hope, a feeling so long dormant it was painful, began to battle with a lifetime of learned dread. Could the impossible be true? At dawn, I went to Mr. Wilson. He confirmed everything, his own face grave. He's looking for a child abandoned 20 years back. Agnes says he has to know. And he pays ... like a king. That sleepless night forged a new resolve in me. For 20 years, I had been passive clay. No more. If this man returned, I would speak. I would tell the truth, and let the consequences fall where they may. 3 days later, the black car returned. I was pinning sheets to the line when it glided to a stop. The man emerged and approached our rickety gate. Gerald and Bobby, feigning a bravado they didn't feel, invited him onto our patch of dirt. Good afternoon, he said, his voice a calm. Deep River. I've come to conclude some business. He opened a leather portfolio. I am now the legal owner of this property. The house, the land, all of it. The silence was absolute, broken only by the buzz of flies. That's impossible, Bobby spluttered. We didn't sell. The city sold it for decades of unpaid taxes and liens, the man stated, utterly calm. The transaction is legal, documented, and complete. But why? Gerald pleaded, his voice cracking. Who are you? Then the man turned. He walked past them, his eyes fixed on me. He removed his sunglasses. And I was staring into my own eyes, dark, deep-set, shaped like my mother's. My knees buckled. The world swam. My name is Robert Parker, he said, his voice softening into something that felt like absolution. He steadied me with a firm hand. 20 years ago, a man named Henry Jackson found a newborn in a vacant lot on the east side. He took that child home, named him Robert, and raised him as his own son. He touched the scar on his forehead, a piece of glass from that place. Before he died, he told me everything he knew. He gave me a place to start looking. He turned his gaze back to the two statues of fear that were my father and brother. I have spent considerable time and resources investigating. I spoke to a retired midwife, Mrs. Olson, who remembers a far too young girl in this house. I found an old neighbor, Mr. Thompson, who recalled seeing a man and two others walking toward the lot late one night. I have pieced together the story of a 12-year-old girl who gave birth to abandon her child. His eyes, now chips of flint, locked onto Bobby. And through careful deduction, I have identified the child's biological father. Bobby made a sudden, desperate move to flee. Robert merely lifted a finger. Two large, quiet men emerged from the car and intercepted him with effortless efficiency. "I did not come here for violence," Robert said, his voice colder than winter. "Stone, that would be a kindness you do not deserve. I came for justice." He addressed Gerald. "You have 1 hour. Take whatever you can carry and leave this property. If you are here when the hour strikes, I will summon the authorities and provide them with a full account of child rape, coercion, criminal abandonment, and decades of emotional servitude. You will not survive a week in Parchman Penitentiary." Gerald crumpled, weeping, begging for mercy. Robert was an unmovable mountain. "You had 20 years to show mercy. You showed none." Finally, he turned back to me, all the ice melting into a warmth I could feel in my bones. "You are coming with me. Mother, your sentence is over." Within the hour, watched by a few curious neighbors, Gerald and Bobby shuffled down the dirt road for the last time, carrying their pathetic world in 2 suitcases. I felt nothing as they disappeared, no pity, no triumph, just a vast empty silence. Robert drove me to Jackson, to a beautiful home that felt like a dream. In the car, he told me his story, how Mr. Jackson, a simple, good man, had given him love, discipline, and an education. How he had excelled, won scholarships, earned a degree in engineering, and built a thriving business from the ground up. "For years," he confessed, "I thought you had simply thrown me away. It wasn't until I began to uncover the truth about them," he nodded back toward Meridian, "that I understood. You were a prisoner too. He gave me a new life, a life of peace. For 14 years, I lived in his home, treated with a tenderness I thought was lost to me forever. He married a lovely, strong woman named Claudia, and they blessed me with 3 grandchildren, Robert Jr., Marina, and Daniel. Yet, in 1998, a deep, ancestral pull drew me back to Meridian, to my own soil. Robert, understanding in a way that still moves me, bought me this little house with its big, sunny backyard. Here, I have cultivated my final and greatest peace. My father, Gerald, died alone in a charity hospice in 1995. Bobby followed 3 years later, his body finally surrendering to the poison he had always favored. Robert told me the news without emotion. "The ledger is balanced, Mom," was all he said. "Now, at 74, my life is a gentle rhythm. I garden. I crochet gifts for my family. Dear friends visit for coffee and talk. My son visits like clockwork. His children fill this house with laughter." Robert still makes a pilgrimage to Mr. Jackson's grave each year. "He was my first father," he says. "He taught me how to be a man, so I could come back and be your son." When I look at the tapestry of my life, I see the dark, knotted threads of suffering. But I also see how they were necessary to make the golden threads of redemption shine so brilliantly. The love I felt at my son's birth never died. It went underground, a deep river that flowed silently for 20 years, only to emerge in a mighty, cleansing flood. So, to you, my dear friends who have journeyed with me to the end of this long story, I offer this. In your deepest night, guard that fragile flame of hope. Life's justice is not always swift, but it is often profound in its precision. An ending is often a secret beginning. The bonds of true love are not subject to time or tyranny. If you are in a place of pain, please, I implore you, reach out. You are not alone. And hold on, for life possesses an astonishing, miraculous capacity to heal, to restore, and to rewrite even the most tragic of stories. If this account has touched a place in your spirit, please consider subscribing and sharing it. And if you would, leave a single word in the comments below. Miracle. For that is the only word that fits the astonishing arc of my days. May God bless you and keep you, each and every one. And never forget, no matter how long the winter, it is never too late for your life to blossom into its own extraordinary miracle.